very much. Kia ora.
Excellent speech, thank you.
Kevin Haig.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. In relation to part 2, I spoke about the impending the congruence we were seeking between
Order.
The congruence we were seeking between the ways that we dealt with different sorts of psychoactive or recreational substances, and part 3 indeed provides much of the machinery for the regulation. It introduces the very, very important principle that the regulation is proportional to the harm, which is very important, and it covers off those bases that we have discussed in this House in relation to alcohol, location of outlets, sponsorship, advertising, labelling and so on. It stops short of introducing a tax on these products, but only for the reason that it was not at this point possible to determine what level such a tax should have. We want to come back to that in the very near future. So, Mr. Speaker, this is the part of the bill that actually provides those tools that, again, we hope will lead to greater congruence. I want to give most of my time, however, to this issue of possession. Paul Hutchison indicated that the National MPs decided to vote to support a possession charge after the evidence given by a couple of police officers to the Select Committee. There's an intriguing gap of some months between the police officers doing that and the National MPs changing their position to support such a possession charge. And indeed, I draw the House's attention to the Green minority view on the bill, which makes no mention of the Clause 63 issue and the possession charge, and that is because up until that point there was no possession charge in the bill. It was introduced at the very last moment by the government MPs. Mr. Lees-Galloway has an SOP which the Green Party will be very pleased to support. We think that, as he has said, that the existence of this charge does not contribute to the purpose of the bill. It does not in any way assist harm minimisation or the promotion of health of people who use these psychoactive substances. The existence of possession charges under the Misuse of Drugs Act has not contributed to any kind of reduction in consumption or addiction or any kind of increase in the use of treatment services by people who use those drugs. There is no evidence to suggest that it would be any different in relation to psychoactive substances. So that's point one. The second point is, Mr. Lees-Galloway has pointed out, is that infringement offences are intended to follow the actual infringement by an immediate penalty, an immediate minor penalty. That is not pretty much ever going to be possible in the case of Clause 63, because at the very least, the substance that person A, who's pulled over by the police, searched, found to have a substance on them, the police will not know what that substance is. They will not know unless and until that substance is tested. Now, when it's tested, in most cases, I think it's pretty clear that that substance will turn out to be an approved substance, because once we have a legalised supply of some psychoactive substances with low risk, actually that's going to tend to be what most people have. So in most cases, that is what will tend to be the case. So a person will have been deprived of their legally acquired and possessed substance for a period of some months before getting it returned, in most cases. Now, there will be other cases, Mr. Chair, where the person is found to be carrying a substance which is not an approved psychoactive substance. But the point that I want to make to the House is this, that substances that are not approved psychoactive substances, still actually constitute two categories of things. The first of those categories is psychoactive substances for which an application, Mr. Chair?
Kevin Haig.
For which an application has been made for approval and has been declined. Now, it's pretty clear in that case that we're dealing with a psychoactive substance and that it has not been approved. And I think everyone would say it's probably not legitimate for that substance to continue to be in someone's possession. There's no legal way they could have acquired it. But, Mr. Chair, there will be other substances. If I have a powder or some pills and those turn out not to be of a substance that has ever been subject to an application, then first of all, we do not know whether it is a psychoactive substance or not. And what that means, Mr. Chair, is that the police are suddenly in a position of needing to make an assessment of whether or not my powder or my pills is a psychoactive substance when, according to Clause 9 of this bill, whether or not something is a psychoactive substance is determined, in fact, by the authority. They will not have done so. So what we arrive in, Mr. Chair, is an absolute mess in which the police cannot possibly make sensible decisions. And we cannot know from this bill what ought to happen to the person who possessed that or to the substance that they possessed. Because very likely the substance they possessed entirely lawfully. So, Mr. Chair, there is a really fundamental flaw with Clause 63. And this business actually of determining whether or not something is a psychoactive substance also applies to Clause 46. And it's, in my view, a fatal flaw with this bill. I want to just very briefly touch on Clause 46 as well, and just to highlight the point made in our minority view, which is that while very reluctantly we have come to support the inclusion of that clause in the bill, we do so with some fear that that clause may in fact be used to harass, in particular, young people from particular minority groups, and that, Mr. Chair, would be a most unfortunate consequence that certainly the Green Party will be monitoring and be looking for in the review of the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Move to the questions, and the first one is the Minister's amendment set out on SOP number 268, set out on SOP number 277. The question is that the amendments to the amendment be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that the Minister's amendment set out on SOP number 268 as amended be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. We move now to Ian Lees-Galloway's amendment set out on SOP number 267. The question is the Lees-Galloway amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. Noes have it. Party vote. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
33 in favour.
Green Party.
14 in favour.
New Zealand First.
7 opposed.
Māori Party.
2 votes opposed.
Mana.
1 vote in favour.
Act New Zealand.
1 opposed.
Honourable Peter Dunn.
1 opposed.
Brendan Horan.
1 opposed.
Any other votes?
The ayes are 48, the noes are 71. The amendment's not agreed to. The question is now that Part 3 as amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. We move to Schedule 1. So the question is that the Minister's amendments to SOP number 268 set out on SOP number 277 and TypeScript amendment to SOP 268 be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The next question is that the Minister's amendment set out on SOP number 268 as amended be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Schedule 1 as amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is, we move to Schedule 2, and the question is that the Minister's amendment set out on SOP number 268 be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that Schedule 2 as amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Come to the clauses 1 and 2, and the question is that clause 1 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that the Minister's amendments set out on SOP number 268 be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. So the question now is that clause 2 as amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. I will report this bill with amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, the House is resumed. Mr Chairman.
Mr Speaker, the committee has committed the Psychoactive Substances Bill and reports it with amendment. Mr Speaker, I move that the report be adopted.
The question is that the report be adopted. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The bill is set down for third reading next sitting day. Call on government orders of the day numbers 2 to 7.
Legal